Hi, today we're going to be creating a very basic platformer game with just a few levels. In case you want to prototype some of your ideas, you can start with just this. We're not going to be worried about art or creating art, adding art. We're just going to make basic platformer levels with some very simple shapes. So let's get started. Let's just name our project here. We can keep the standard viewport size for now. We'll just call this test platformer, and we're in now. Now, to keep it very simple for anyone who's just simply trying to learn how to create a platformer level, let's focus on this being a static screen level. That means that it won't be scrolling, you won't have this very large traditional platformer level, but maybe something more akin to a Mario vs. Donkey Kong sort of game where most of the level is fit into a single screen without scrolling. I'm aware that some Mario vs. Donkey Kong levels do scroll and they're very large, but a very good chunk, especially at the beginning, are not. They're just on static levels. So let's start off first. This is our size of our entire layout, and it's a little large. We kind of want to keep this viewport window size, so we can find that exact size up here by clicking the project name, Test Platformer, and we see this is the viewport size. Let's go ahead and copy that, and then take that to the layout size and just paste it in, and now it's matched. And let's double click in. We're going to create a sprite. This will be one of our it could be an enemy, it could be a player, it could be our floor, whatever we'd like. So let's go ahead and just let's create our enemy. Let's make him blue, and we can just paste that in. This is just for us to prototype the idea. It's a little large, so we can shrink it. And let's call him player. So we'll click on the sprite, as you can see, go up to name, and just type in whatever name you'd like to give it. I'm giving it the name player. And at the moment, nothing will happen. Well, we can test it out to see. I always recommend, no matter what you do, any little change, test it, because something can happen and you can go and spend 20 minutes to an hour without testing your changes, and then you'll have so much regret because all of a sudden something broke and you don't know what it is, and you might be Control Z undoing so many changes and so much work could be lost if you can't identify what the issue is. So I always recommend to people, and it's a good habit to have, is to immediately test any change. So even though we know what we know what we can expect from this, let's test it out. We just added a player to the screen. You can test out by clicking the play button up here, preview layout, and nothing happens no matter what. If you hit any keys, nothing happens. But we see the white background and we see our player. Okay, so now let's add some functionality to him. Let's click our player, and we can go down here to behaviors. This is where an object, a player, an enemy, whatever you'd like, can learn be given a behavior that gives you a big head start on the sort of implementation of that character. For example, if we're making a platform game, we can add platform. This is a platform behavior. If we were going to go another route and let's say where is that thing? If we wanted the character to rotate, we can add this. If we want it to move in a sine wave, so it moves up and down and up and down, we can add the sine behavior. If you want it to move like a vehicle, there is also a behavior for that somewhere. I know there is because I used it. Oh, here it is, car. So for now, we want to use the platform behavior. We'll double click that, and player behaviors platform. There you go. You can always enable them and disable them, so you can add several behaviors. Right now, as you can see, it is enabled here. And default controls, we'll leave it at that. This just means that the arrow keys are going to be used to move the character. So left arrow, right arrow, that'll move the character left and right. Up will make it jump, and down, I don't think will do anything. These are the variables you can play with: the speed, acceleration, deceleration, jump strength, gravity, all that stuff. And that's up to your liking. for your prototype or whatever you're working on. For now, we'll keep it standard and let's check it out. Let's move him a little bit higher and let's just see what happens. Let's run the play. And the character falls. And I can't do anything about it, even though I'm hitting the arrow keys, because he's gone forever. So, let's prevent that. Let's add a ground. Let's double click again. Hit sprite. And let's make the ground, I don't know, black. Let's just drag this down here. Let's drag it across. We can shrink it a bit. It's up to your liking. And then, right now, like I said, anything you do, test it. See what happens. Again, player falls through. Why is that? That's because this is just an empty sprite. An object with just a little bit of art. So it doesn't have a behavior like the player does. We need to give it a behavior. And for something to essentially block movement from another object, it should have the solid behavior. This makes that object solid. Let's click it. Now you can see the solid behavior is enabled for the sprite. Let's call this ground. And now let's run play. Now the player lands. Now we can try the arrow keys. Left, right, up. So we've got a little bit happening. It's a little slow, so we can play with the player variables, the player platform variables, or even the size will affect the feel. It's always good to just mess around. So what I mean by that is, let's shrink it a bit. And he's much smaller, but all of a sudden, it kind of feels faster. It feels like he can jump higher. Nothing's changed in the variables, however. And I'm going to Control Z that. I did 2 Control Z's. Let's put him down here. And we can just mess around with the speed. I'm going to make from 330, changing that to 450. Let's see what that's like. It's a little faster. His jump is a little bit low, I think, for that speed. So I'm going to increase this to, how about 850? Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, that's not too bad. Alright, so we've got a ground, we've got a player that can jump. What else? Well, a game, I think, needs to have a beginning and an end. You need to be able to start, but also be able to finish something. So let's try to make an end goal to the level. How about we make it a collectible? You've got to collect something to end the level. Let's double click, hit sprite, and we can make this something like a yellowish, goldish. I'm holding shift while grabbing the corner buttons. And I'm going to call this, you can call it whatever you want, I'm just going to call it goal. And I haven't added any behaviors, but let's still just test it out. Nothing happens. It's a little high up. I can bring it back down. And I'll move it closer to the character so we can test faster. Nothing happens. Okay. We need to add some events now to this. We go into our event sheet. You'll see in your layout 1, the event sheet attaches event sheet 1. So we can go into this and we'll add our first event. This is where the code happens. So we'll click our player, and when the player is doing something, we want something to happen. So right now we want the player to collide with the goal, and when that happens, we want the level to either go to the next or just simply end. So let's do that. Let's have the player, and then you can start typing up here a collision, or you can scroll and find it. I have an idea of what's in here, so you can start typing collision. You can click on collision with another object. So right here, we select the object. I'm going to click goal. So now we've got the first part. when the player collides with the goal, something has to happen. Let's make something happen. Right now we don't have another level. So how about we just restart the level? Okay, so we'll click System. And here you can scroll, or you can start typing up here, Restart. And there's an option for Restart the layout. Let's try and run it, see what happens. Pay attention to the positions of the players, and the goal, and we'll see what happens when they collide. Okay. It looks like it's restarting because the player's position keeps getting reset. So we know that's working. And then let's do something else. This thing is just kind of a square that's not really doing anything. Let's make it look more like a collectible object that's interesting. So let's go to behaviors, and we can add something different here I mentioned earlier. We can add the rotation behavior. Right now it's set to a speed of 180 degrees per second. So is it enabled? It is. You can also preview it here, see how it looks. Looks pretty cool. We can check it off and run it. Cool. Alright. And now, it's not really a platform game if we don't have platforms. So let's raise this high and let's create some platforms. We can probably take this ground and copy and paste it. And then shrink it. That's one option. Let's see what that feels like. That works as a platform. Can we go under it? No, we're blocked off. That's not really how a lot of platform games work. So let's do something else. Let's instead of this ground, let's clone it. This will give us a brand new one. See, it has a name ground 2. It appears here in our objects folder as ground 2. Let's rename it and just simply call it platform. This one right here, let's delete it. And we can actually just adjust the size a bit. And now let's go to behaviors, because we saw that we were kind of underneath it, and this happened. We couldn't jump through it. So let's click our platform, go to behaviors, and we're going to test something out. We're going to see what happens if we keep solid but add something else. There is one called jump through, I believe. That should be around here somewhere. Okay, I'm just going to type it in, jump through. And is there a definition on this thing? Click it. It's a solid the platform behavior can also jump on from underneath. So we can actually disable the solid one and see if we even need it. It might still work as a solid. So it still works as a solid. Now the thing we wanted to test is if we can jump from underneath it. And we can. So this is more of a traditional platform that we experience in games. So we'll keep that. And we can go back to behaviors and just click delete on solid. We don't need that one anymore for that specific object. So now we can drag a few of these. You can copy and paste or hold command and start dragging more. And let's try to reach this goal. Let's play it. Cool. Alright. Let's add a little bit more. How about a little particle when you collect this thing? So we're going to double click, and instead of clicking sprite like we usually do, let's start typing in particles. We've got this. We've got the color still stored, so let's paste that in. Let's exit out the sprite editor. And we can see the cone shape. That's the direction that the particles will be shot in. So if you hit preview, you'll see that. We don't want that. And it's also just continuously going. That's because it's listed here in the type as continuous spray. We want this to be a one-shot. What that means is, check out the preview, it's just one time spawning of particles. The spray cone is set to 60. That's the cone that you see there. 60 degrees. Let's make this 360. So a full circle. That's more what we want. Seems like a good amount. Let's reduce it. Maybe like 20. Okay, that's a little better. And you can play with these other properties here, like the speed. What if we make it 400? Check it out. Looks a little fast. Looks like it gets kind of far. Let's try 300. That might be a sweet spot. Not bad. Okay, so we'll leave it at 300. And let's see what happens if we leave it on screen. It just stays there. And we haven't set any code, so you shouldn't expect to see any behavior. So let's just move this off screen for now. And it has the name particles. You can name it whatever you want. Let's name it particles underscore goal so that we know it's associated to this goal piece. And we're going to say this: when the player collides with the goal, let's add some more code to this. We're going to add the action goal spawns another object. You can type that in there. This will create another object when these two collide, and it'll come from the goal object. What do we want? We click that object button and then we select particles goal. Okay, so we have this right now underneath restart layout, which means we're not going to see it. If you don't believe me, check it out. That's because they're both being called at the exact same time. We want this to go first. So even if we move this up, it'll still spawn at the exact same time because they're being called at the exact same time. See? So we gotta add something that's a wait, a little timer. We go add action, click system, and we can just type in the word wait here. 1 second might be good enough. It might be a little long. Let's see. We got 1 second here. Let's click it and drag it above restart layout. And now let's run it again. We should see the particles. We wait a little bit, and then we'll restart the layout. Okay, it did. Still a little bit weird because the goal particle stays on screen and the player falls. So there's things we can play with there to polish it up. So now let's see what we can do. We can click another action, and when they collide, we can have the goal destroy itself. Let's drag this up above here. So it'll spawn this particle in its position right at the same time it'll destroy itself. Let's see what that's like. Nice. It's not on screen anymore. However, my player is still falling, and maybe that's a little bit weird. So let's play around with that. One more thing. So he falls because he has gravity, and that's part of the platform behavior. So that's something we can probably mess with. Or notice it says enabled here. What happens if we disable it? That's another approach we can take. So when they collide, let's add an action, and let's click the player, and let's scroll down. There's the code you can select for the platform behavior, and let's find something that says enabled. So set enabled, and there's a drop down here, enable or disabled. Set it to disabled, and let's drag it above the wait. Let's test it out. So when the player collides with the goal will spawn the particles, destroy itself, and the player's platform behavior will become disabled, meaning that the gravity won't work. Let's test it. And just like that, and it restarts. Cool. We're not going to a new level, however, yet. We're just restarting. So let's play around and let's create a new level. We can click on layout here in the layouts folder and duplicate. We now have a layout 2. To make it look different, let's double click that so we make sure it's up here. And by the way, in the event sheet associated to layout 2, it still says event sheet 1. That's okay, because we wanted to reference this code. you can also always create a new event sheet down here in the event sheets folder, and then in the drop down that new event sheet will appear. You can then select there and it'll reference that. So for now we have layout 1 and layout 2. They're exactly the same. So let's just move things around. Let's make this platform appear maybe here, and this one here, and then this one here, and let's add some more. Let's add the goal right there. Okay, let's try it out from layout 1. Let's see if we go there. Oh wait, we won't, right? Because in the event sheet we still have it restarting. So instead, let's click this. Instead of restart layout, let's click, we can go to next or go to layout to specify a specific one. Let's click next. Back to layout 1 and let's test it. We should be able to see layout 2 as soon as we complete this one. And there we are. What happens if we finish this one? Nothing, because there is no next layout. It's the code is saying go to next layout, but as you can see, there is no next layout. So we can actually tell the code to take you back to maybe the title screen or credits or a boss, whatever you want. For now, since we have level 1 and level 2, let's just send it back to level 1. But before we do that, in layout 2, let's make this have a new object. We'll call this, let's clone it. So they'll be very identical. They'll have the same behaviors. Let's delete the first one from this layout, and we'll drag goal 2. That way it has different behaviors when you collide with them. You'll see what it's going to do. We can copy and paste this, and this is a little advanced trick. You can right click, replace the object. Which one are we picking from the objects that are referenced in this block of code? We want the goal. We want to replace it with the goal 2. So now if the player collides with the goal 2, it'll do the same thing. Spawn particles, destroy itself, disable the player platform behavior, wait a second, and then go to next layout. We don't want it to go to next. We want it to go to, we can do previous, or we can specify it. So we can go to layout, and let's go to layout 1. So now we'll go to layout 1, complete it, go to layout 2, complete it, go back to layout 1. Let's try it. Now we're in layout 2. And now we're back in layout 1. There's one more thing I want to show you. Notice this. If I just run off screen, if I hit the right arrow, which I'm pressing, the player isn't coming back. Why is that? Well, it's because he just ran off this thing, like so. There's a bunch of different approaches we can take. It's up to the designer, really. We can have a sort of death collision box where if the player collides with something on the outside, he'll just die, and you can restart the level that way. Or we can add sort of bounding the player to the layout. So let's try that for now. We'll go to behaviors. We're going to add a new behavior, and we have this bound to layout. It stops an object from leaving the layout. So let's add that, and let's test it. So I'm going to click the left arrow all the way. Player's just stuck there. Same thing with the right. The player's just stuck there. Great. So now let's move to, we'll move to layout 2 right now. And it should work for that as well. Stuck there. Perfect. So please create multiple levels, and I'd love to see links if you want to share them. You can post them on itch.io. Create a free account there. You can make it private if you don't want a lot of people to see it, and And please put little twists on it, whatever you can. Just explore the attributes, the variables that are within the behavior. You can also, I'll give you some homework. How about take a, create a new level and take one of these platforms, duplicate it, make it a new object, and play around with these behaviors you see here. Add some new ones. There's a really, really, really powerful one you're going to use, I promise, and that is the sine wave. And we can use it in a future video. But for now, play around and let me know what you create. I know it's very, very basic and it maybe doesn't feel super exciting because you're only staring at shapes, but this is how it starts. Once you build this foundation, you see sort of if you really liked game design, especially sort of basic kind of retro-esque platform-based, game design. So I hope to see what you guys create. Thanks a lot.